Hey there, young bestie. It's Jia from Hobbii, and you are listening to Skein and Tell, the podcast that unravels it all, from creativity to community and the little bittle moments in between every stitch. Today, I have a very special guest. She's a crochet designer. She is a content creator, an author, a community builder, an all-around yarn legend. It's basically like having a rock legend on a podcast right now. That's how I'm feeling. You know her. You love her. It's Toni Lipsey from TLYarnCrafts. So,
Hey.
sorry, Toni. I just cut you through because today I just want to let people know that we're not just talking about, patterns and the pretty stitches and the pretty designs you're making. We are going to go deep today, right, Toni?
Yes, and I can't wait. I'm so excited to be here, Jaya.
All right, so let's talk about, everything from alternate timelines to crochet conspiracies to burnout, even to capitalism, and really what happens behind the scenes of your favorite crochet post. So grab your yarn, girls and boys, and let's get to it. Let's dive in. So hi, Toni.
Hello. How you doing?
We're doing fine. Toni, now you are allowed to speak. I'm sorry.
Okay. Forgive me. This is one of the first audio only podcasts I've done, so I'll just have to get in the flow with you. But
Yeah,
okay,
it's
go.
like you have to okay, now she stopped speaking. Now I can no, but it's feel free to cut me off anytime you feel like it. It's totally fine. I'm sorry I didn't give space for you to say your hellos in the first place. I thought that it was kind of rude of me, actually.
No. It's fine. It's fine. Let's keep going.
I've just done this solo my whole life.
Yeah.
Doing this, so it's a little also a little strange for me to have a guest that is also online because now you're in the States and I'm here in Denmark. So yeah. But let's start with something fun. Let's talk a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about you, just for the people who actually don't know who you are.
Sure. Well, for anybody who I've never met before, hello. Hey, new friend. I am Toni, the crochet designer, educator, and author behind TLYarnCrafts. Been running my business for a little under a decade now, really focusing on, teaching people to love crochet, to explore crochet, to, really stretch themselves and their creativity and just have a whole lot of fun making things for themselves and others.
Oh God, Toni, you are just, I could listen to you speak. Honestly, I loved everything you said just now.
You're so sweet.
You're such an inspiration, honestly. You're so well spoken and so you make sense and you're just so put together. I feel like I'm so messy in comparison to you right now, but let's try to make this as smooth as possible, okay? So, like I promised, today's episode is going to be all about the things that you don't hear Toni talking about, or at least not that often.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start this podcast with a little bit of a segment that explores a little bit an alternate universe, something funny, something fun, something lighthearted, and then we're gonna get into some more heavy topics like conspiracy and other things. But Toni and the multiverse, Toni and the parallel universe. Who are you in a world where crochet doesn't exist?
Oh my gosh.
Because crochet is such a big part of you, and just fiber arts is such a big part of you.
It feels very much my identity these days. I've been at this for so many years. It's hard to think of what I'd be doing if crochet didn't exist. Oh my gosh. At my core, I am an artist. I am somebody who likes to, facilitate people having good experiences with art, with kind of upgrading their lives a bit and, indulging in some of those kind of cozy, hobbies or interests or whims. So if crochet didn't exist, I would imagine I would probably open like one of those really nice bougie boutiques, the place that sells like
Like
nice
a lifestyle one.
candles. Yeah, like a lifestyle
Hmm.
with candles and really cute, comfy clothes. And we've got a great playlist going in the background. And, I'd probably have a storefront for something like that so people can come and indulge in those kind of fun, like gift things or those things to upgrade their space. But on the side of that, I've always thought that I would love to do an interior design business with my mom. She always, like when we were growing up, and we didn't have a whole lot growing up, but my mom always took a lot of pride in our home and decorating that and showing her personality and our family identity through our home. And I would have loved to kind of indulge in that with her, to go into other people's homes and kind of build that same ambiance, that same homeliness, that coziness inside folks' homes. So, expressing our art that way. I think that would be kind of a really fun exploration for the two of us in the multiverse.
Oh, I feel already soothed just hearing about it. Like a cozy shop, a bougie shop, and also like the fact that I think it's very cozy to hear that you would still have some sort of a business going on with your mom,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
she's there. She's not gonna leave.
Yes, I believe in every version of the multiverse. My mom and I are doing something creative together. I just,
Oh,
it has to be.
oh, that's so cute. But if that is but would you also do like a hobby then with your mom, or would you? Wait, I'm gonna rephrase that.
Okay.
So if now, because I feel like your job, your actual this universe job, TLYarnCrafts, is of course your job, and it's of course also your hobby, and it's your passion, it's your everything, right? Would it still be like that in the multiverse, in the parallel universe? Your little designer, interior designer office with your mom, or your little lifestyle boutique, would it also be your hobby as well as your job? Would it be like everything, or do you think you would have specific hobbies?
Yeah, I think if crochet didn't exist, I probably would explore, some of my other interests. If I wasn't crocheting as my hobby, one of the other things I really love to do and would like to indulge in more is bike riding. My father actually got me very much into bike riding and cycling. Like he had a 100-mile trip last year where he rode on his bike for 100 miles. And when he was telling me about this, I was like, you sound nuts. But as he was sending us the photos and all the people that he met along the way, I was like, oh, wow, that actually does sound like a pretty cool thing to do. So I think I would indulge in that hobby and maybe add in a bit of travel with it, take my bike to someplace like Japan or Brazil, like, biking on the beaches in Hawaii. Like, I would love to maybe explore the world on a bike. I think that would be a really fun hobby I'd want to indulge in.
You would have like your own proper bike, right? That you would have to take with you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'd have my specific bike because the thing with if I'm going to cycle, I have to have the perfect seat on my bike if I'm going to be on there that long. So, yeah, I'd have to take my bike with me.
So, in a way or another, ladies and gentlemen, nothing has changed there. Toni would still have a very expensive hobby, just like fiber arts.
Absolutely. I'd have to have something to kind of pour all that energy into, and it would be souping up my bike perfectly so I can ride it around the world.
Oh, but that does sound very nice. And you know what? I mean, I haven't actually taken long trips, but Japan in 2010, that's 15 years ago. Boy, was I young. But in 2010, I was in Osaka, and I had rented a bike for a whole day. And Osaka just has these beautiful little mountains. They're not that big, so there's not anything crazy, right? But they have these beautiful mountains and then just forests and everything. And it's just, I spent the whole day biking around a little river, and just, it was absolutely incredible to feel the nice breeze. And it was also summer. It was August, so it was so hot. It was so hot. It was the only thing that actually kept my sanity. The fact that I could drive that bike and sometimes spray some water on my ears to cool off. Loveliest memory I have.
Oh, I love it. You're really selling this to me. Like I
mean, girl,
grab my bike and go right now.
It is really nice. It's super, super nice, but it's also very expensive. We have a lot of people here at the Hobbii office who are into biking, actually. And we are, Denmark is very famous for its bike love. So
Oh, amazing. So you guys already have like a culture for that then.
yeah, it's insane. Like
Oh.
everybody here has a bicycle at the office. And I believe that more than 60% of people at Hobbii actually bike to the office. I'm not sure if that is correct, but I'm pretty sure that the number is quite accurate.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's part of the culture here in Denmark. Everybody's just biking to work, and
Wow.
and the infrastructure is made in such a way that allows you to do so, But then there's situations like my boss, my actual manager, Christian, he is insane. He does these like long trips. It takes him like an hour and more actually to bike to work, and he does it I think once or twice a week. Where I'm like, that's a long bike ride.
That is some serious commitment.
Serious commitment for sure, And he's like, there's also like it's insane. I'm not gonna go into details because I feel like there's a lot to talk about when it comes to bikes, but we are big on bicycles here. So Toni, I think that Toni in a multiverse would still be friends with people at Hobbii.
Oh, 1,000%. I'm gonna have to add Denmark to the list. You might see me riding around on my bike days.
Yes, do that. All right. Well, nice to know what Toni and the multiverse would be doing. Let's try something different. Let's talk about crochet conspiracies and superstitions. Like everybody has, I feel, superstitions. And crafty people, just like sporty people, now that we've talked about bikes a little bit, like we all have superstitions, okay? So now I want to hear your hot takes. Is there any rules or truths in the fiber world that you think are totally made up?
Oh gosh, so many. Where do we begin? I think probably the first, truth, which I'm doing in air quotes for sure, is that, there's this very specific criteria on what makes somebody a real crocheter. As somebody who focuses a lot on teaching beginners and building confidence, I hear that folks are like, I didn't feel like a real crocheter until I bought my first fancy skein of yarn or until I went to my first fiber festival. And I'm like, sweetheart, you're a real crocheter from the moment you pick up a crochet hook. It doesn't take pricey tools or a big stash or trying, the latest technique to make you a real crocheter. Like all it really takes is some passion, some intention, and a little bit of skill. And I got y'all on that part. We can get the skills down. It just takes, wanting to crochet to make you a real crocheter. And I struggle sometimes with, even somebody at my level who knows a whole lot might feel, newbies might feel a little bit nervous to be like, yeah, I'm in the same, league with this person because I've only been crocheting for 6 months. Oh, honey, it don't matter. We all in this together. We're all here to support and encourage each other.
And I completely get it. I feel like if you've ever crocheted a stitch even, just like chained,
yes,
you're already a real crocheter as long as you did it with, joy in your heart. And I also feel like as a quite experienced knitter myself, I feel like there's so many projects that I'm not catching up on, and therefore, but I have maybe friends or whatever, people that I know that have been knitting or crocheting in my life, and they've done it for much, much longer. I always feel like there is that chase. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm never going to be as good and as experienced as they are.
Yeah.
Because they've done it for a much longer time. So sometimes I also have that kind of like a ghost feeling where I'm like, am I really a real knitter? Like a proper one? Yeah. Or do you have to like have, 20 years of it actually doing it? Or, you know what I mean? Like it's
I do,
so silly to think about.
But I feel like that is such a valid feeling, right? Because when you're new at something and you see all these experienced people around you, you're like, oh my gosh, I'll never make it to that level. But what you're seeing, if we're being completely honest, is like true obsession, and not everybody wants to be obsessed with their crafts or with their hobbies. I think of somebody like myself. I'm looking around my studio right now, and there is yarn and hooks and little, stuffed alpacas and baskets and all of this stuff that like I've invested in because I am truly obsessed with this hobby. I don't even have anything else that compares to how invested I am in this. And nobody expects, everyone to be this way. When I meet a fellow obsessive crocheter, like we're, that kindred spirit is there, but I would never look at somebody who just crochets occasionally like, oh, you don't crochet enough to be here. Like, could you imagine?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So I just look at it like, the obsession level varies, but at the end of the day, if you know what to do with a crochet hook in your hand, you're a real crocheter and you've earned the right to be here.
Yeah, and even if it's just like the simplest stitch, if you only know how to do single crochets, but you're still doing your thing, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
And yeah, I feel like sometimes I need to remind myself that even though I hang, because of course, I mean, I work at Hobbii, right? So that means that there's 20, 30, 40 other people here that have been crocheting, knitting for over 40, 50 years.
Wow.
And I think we even have, we have somebody who's been crocheting for over and knitting for over 50 years. 50 years. Can you imagine that? That's insane.
Oh my gosh. I hope that's me one day. That's what I'm going for. Yeah. I'm trying to set my own record.
And so I hope that, so sometimes I'm thinking to myself, wow, I really need to remember that it does not matter for how long I've done it or what my level is. I just need to enjoy this craft or this hobby,
Yes, absolutely.
Just
and that's
enjoy it at your own pace.
That's what makes all the difference. Like, are you having a good time? Because at the end of the day, this is something we do, outside of work or outside of our family obligations. There's so many things that are vying for your time. So if you have the luxury to sit down and enjoy a hobby, that should be the extent of, the feeling. It's just that positive, joyful feeling of being able to do something just for fun.
Yeah. And if people are doing just their own thing, that doesn't mean you have to do it too, It's like all of those little tiny little things like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't block that. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all these little steps.
Oh, just shut up.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, when it comes down to it, and even though I will say, I feel like that is one of the other crochet truths that I at least want. There's this misconception that you don't need to block crochet. And even if you choose not to block your project, totally fine. I still want folks to at least have the knowledge of like how to do it, what it's for, and maybe you'll block your projects occasionally. But I feel like that was a crochet misconception for a really long time, that not only do you not need to block your projects, but that you shouldn't block your projects. And I was like, I don't know where this idea came from.
You shouldn't?
Yes. That was like a perception here that like blocking your projects could ruin your work, which, if you do it improperly, sure, blocking could ruin crochet, knitting, whatever. But, putting a little bit of steam on your projects to, even out the wrinkles or get the shape right, like there's no issue with that. So that is definitely one crochet truth that I, would love to, like, if there was like a handbook that we could hand people when they started crocheting, I would love to put in that handbook, like, you can and you should consider blocking your projects, just to break that down to folks, because it's like this kind of mystical practice, and people are like, should I block it? How do I do it? Does it last? There's so much mystery and misconception around it. But I think just to start with, crochet can and should be blocked in most cases. I would really love to kind of like start spreading that message a bit more.
That's actually a very interesting. I'm surprised by you saying this, because And I get it, and I agree. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna. We are on the same page, but I also feel like, for instance, as a beginner, even though this is definitely something that you should be learning as a beginner because it matters so much. It matters, and you know what? It matters that you make a gauge swatch. I think that is my truth that I've learned the hard way.
Yep.
A little gauge, make it. It's just a little small little square. Do it. So much, and wash it and block it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like those are one of those things where it can teach you much more about your final project or your final, piece when you've washed it and blocked it, because it can change completely. But I'm also a crafter who also, I'm thinking that it's okay if you don't block when you first start. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
I feel like beginners need to indulge a little bit in the not having to do too many things, too many steps. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And if I think about, a lot of like absolute beginner projects, you don't need to block a pot holder, right? But if we're going to explore bigger projects, and I'm thinking particularly about, shawls, wearables, even some blankets.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to make these big fabric pieces, there's just a polish that you add to your projects when you block. I know, at least for me, when I take that extra step of and it really feels like honoring all the work and all the energy of the project to really make it look and feel as great as it can. It does feel like a big accomplishment to me. So for beginners, maybe your first few projects you don't block, but I would say pretty early on in the process, by that fourth or fifth project, at least having a concept of what blocking is and starting to build some discernment of when to do it and when to not. I would love for people to kind of build that a little sooner, because blocking kind of has this reputation of only serious makers block their projects. I'm like, no, we should all have some practice of blocking our projects. I feel like the concept of blocking is kind of built up into this thing that you have to attain or reach or get to that point. And I'm like, no, it is literally just washing your piece a little bit, whether it's steam, whether it's wet blocking it, even just spraying it and pinning it down into shape. All of these are just subtle ways that we can, put that final polish, put that nice finish on all of our hard work.
And that makes a lot of sense. I had no clue that people actually thought that they didn't have to block, or that blocking would ruin their projects. That's so funny. And yes, girl, if you're making a shawl, please block it.
Please.
You want that to drape, please block it. If you want to see details, especially if you're using, different stitches and you just really want to block it.
Yes, just do it. And I know the prep work and the finishing are a lot of people's least favorite part of the process, but they are still part of the process. We don't like to do them should not be enough of a reason not to. I've always felt like that is kind of doing a disservice to all the time, the energy, the focus that we've put into a project. And those parts of it, like you said, the making the gauge swatch or doing blocking, they really don't take that long. It's just an extra step. It's just an extra step.
Yeah, and it's a little extra step, and it's also cozy. It has its own it has its own little touch,
100%.
Especially if you're doing a cal with a friend or something. I love that. I love it so much. Me and my best friend Erica, we love to start cals together.
I love that.
And we always choose very different colors for our projects because we're very, very different in our styles, right? So it's so nice to have a little gauge swatch to compare and see how it looks in different colors. And sometimes we would make 2 or 3 because maybe we would be looking at different color combinations. So it would just be so nice to see how it can be, turned into different looks by just doing it in different colors. And it's such a nice little, you're making a little swatch. You don't have to think too much, and then you can have your little coffee and your little Cal intro, eating. So it's also very cozy, and I think that is what people need to. I love that you use the word polish. I feel like that is really, really cool, and that's something that people should keep in mind in the beginning and the end of a project. The beginning, which is making a swatch, and the end, which is blocking it, right?
Yeah.
Blocking your project. I think that the word polish, like give that little polish to your project, is so nice in a way or another. It really makes you understand the actual meaning of what blocking does. You are polishing your project. You are giving it, your project, its true shine. And yeah, that's really, really nice too. I'm gonna remember that, the little polish sentence. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Gives it that little razzle dazzle at the end.
Razzle dazzle. All right. Well, let's talk about rituals. Tell me a little bit about pre-pattern rituals, because everybody's doing their little gauge swatch, or not everybody. I'm doing my little gauge swatches, my little ritual, especially if I'm starting a new project. I'm always having my little meeting with my friend Erica when we start a Cal. We always work almost on the same projects together, so we always meet up. It's like it's our unwritten rule that we meet up to make our little gauge swatch, have a little coffee, chat about the pattern, criticize the pattern, fix the pattern, all of that, right? So do you have any weird little crochet superstitions or pre-pattern rituals or lucky hooks that you can share with us?
I've actually never shared these before, and voicing them out loud, they're kind of silly, I'll be honest, and they're super specific to me, but there are just a couple things during my crochet practice where I'm like, if something is off, like I just gotta switch it up. So the first one that I think of is if I'm crocheting on a project and I drop my hook, like if my hook actually falls out of my hand, that means it's time to like give that project a rest for the day. Like it's almost like it's bad luck if I was to continue. And that comes from one of my first temperature blankets that I was working on was, crocheting along. It was Tunisian crochet, no problem. And I got a little distracted and my hook fell out of my hand. And I didn't think anything of it, obviously. I mean, who would? You drop your hook, you pick it up, and keep going. So I kept going. And somewhere between where I dropped my hook and where I noticed, I lost like 6 stitches along the way. So I ended up having to rip out like 20 rows of work. I was so frustrated, so annoyed, because I'm working on a temperature blanket. So there's constant color changes and there's tails everywhere. Oh my gosh, it was
I'm sorry for laughing. That was hilarious, because it's not 1 or 2 stitches. Like she's like 6 stitches.
6 stitches. And it was like, I couldn't leave it like this. I couldn't fix it. It was really obvious. And it was just, I don't know, my attention just got completely distracted. And I was like, okay, this cannot happen again. So now I have this superstition of like, if I'm working on a project and I drop a hook, that is the universe telling me like, you need to give this one a rest. Go work on something else. Go, walk the dog, load the dishwasher, go do something else for a little while. So that is one of my superstitions that I've held on to for many years now.
Good one. You have more, because you said you had a few more.
I do. So the other one is, I only put one project in a project bag. Like all
I feel like everybody does that.
Well, so for convenience sake, right?
Who in their crazy mind would put 2 projects in the same bag?
Well, I feel a little bit better about it now, because I kind of felt a little silly, like, oh, I can only put one project in a bag, because essentially where that comes from is I was headed out the door and I had my one main project and I was like, let me grab a second project and I'm just going to throw it in this bag. So by the time I get where I'm going, somehow the yarn in my bag all got so tangled up between the 2 projects. It was just this, and this had never happened before. You put your stuff in the bag, you close the bag up, you open the bag, you expect it to look exactly how it did when you put the stuff in there. And it felt like the universe sent like a little gremlin down into my project bag and just she went to town. So I was like, well, we're not doing this again. I don't know how this happened, but it made it so like I spent, because I was going to like a knit night, and I ended up spending the entire evening just untangling these skeins of yarn. And I was like, well,
So neat.
I was like, listen, I only need one sign from the universe to not do something again. That's all it takes. Like, you don't have to tell me twice. I will not be doing this again. And then kind of the third, not so much a superstition, but this was definitely a ritual that I'm starting to adopt, is this year, to get myself a little bit more focused, I made this whip bingo card, right? So
Mhm.
based off the game bingo, but all of the tiles are a different like challenge or a different technique for me to try out, really explore some stuff that I've been nervous about, or, maybe my crochet confidence is not as high in those certain things. So I have that this year. And a few things on my bingo card are like using the color purple. I think I'm probably the only person on
Oh, yes. You and your purple.
Yes, me and purple, we are still finding our way towards each other. So
I
like
remember when you launched Happy Place and you had the aubergine color that you were happy about,
Mhm.
and you were like, wow, it's the actual purple that I kind of like. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. And now it's still going strong. The hate for purple.
And I'm warming to it. And what I came to realize, and especially as somebody who loves color as much as I do, I just never explored purple and all the different ways that purple presents. I always thought of purple like Barney purple. I don't know if you're familiar with Barney. It was like a kid's show that was playing here in the States. And there was this purple dinosaur.
I have to look for Barney purple.
Believe me, when you Google it, you'll know exactly what I mean. So Barney was
Oh,
a
yes, I see.
dinosaur, and that was one of my earliest perceptions of purple. Like, Barney is purple, and I don't really like this color, so I must not like purple. That was, just in my head for years. And now doing this whip bingo card, it's going to encourage me to be like, okay, we need to find a purple that we like, because now we need to make an entire project out of it.
Yeah.
So that is a ritual that I'm really looking forward to implementing over the years. And now it's like the middle of the year. I've maybe got a third of my bingo card done. So I need to get on the stick and whip out these projects. But it'll just be a nice way for me to, explore projects that I wouldn't have come to on my own. And that's something that I'm really focused on at this point in the hobby side of crochet, of doing things that I wouldn't necessarily do on my own.
If you want to get a little bit better at something, a little bit better. I'm not saying go ahead, challenge yourself, do this, do that, because some people just want to take things easy, and that's totally fine. Then if you want to get a little bit better at something, then you have to have these small little challenges, So making a little whip bingo card, printed, laminated, frame it.
Yeah.
To keep you going forward and advancing a little bit. It's actually a really, really good little piece of advice, I'd say, because,
Yeah, I think it's one of the easiest ways that I've found to like really explore crochet. As a crocheter, I've vastly underestimated how broad this hobby is, this craft is. I look at, folks on TikTok or folks on Instagram, and like really the kinds of things, the imagination, the creativity that people are using to make these really unique crochet pieces. And like, I want more of that. Banging that bingo card is my intentional movement towards just, being a little bit more exploratory in my hobby, trying out some new things. Yeah.
And I also feel like, there's a whole, there's a new movement happening now on at least from what I've seen on my social media. I know that everybody's social media is so different, but I've been also researching it a little bit for a previous podcast episode, which is monogamous whip. So being a monogamous whip is like very in fashion now.
Oh, really?
People are focusing on only one project, and they're not starting a new project before they are finished with that one project. And I also think that is kind of cool as well. because
Yeah.
it's also really, really nice to know that you have just one to work on and you are challenging yourself to keep focus on only one. I mean, that would not fly with me. I would like my ADD would go insane. I would be like, but I have no more patience for this. I need to do something else. But
Mhm.
still, I I would love to do that, you know? And I know that most of the people who are craving to craft every single day, that would
Mhm.
not fly with them either.
Mhm. No.
Um,
There needs to be I know at least for my crocheting, I need some variety. I feel like my whims change daily, and when I finally do get to sit down and crochet, if I don't wanna work on what's in front of me, I've got, like, 5 other options at least. But I think that is a beautiful display of discipline
yeah,
to, like,
it is.
work on one project at a time.
But it's kind of like, think about it. It's a little crazy that we crafters or fiber art crafters have so many whips
Yeah.
because look at other people that, I don't know, somebody who enjoys reading, right? They
Mhm.
usually pick up a book and then they read it until it's over.
That's
And then
true.
they pick up a next book, you know? They
Mhm.
don't have like 10 books laying around in different baskets, just being like, oh, no, pick me today, pick me, you know?
That is very true. I think that is something that is a bit unique to us, but as I think that is just a feature of being an
A
artist, of being
feature.
a creative purpose, having that creative, movement to you of like you gotta follow your whims, you know? I think
Mhm.
that's my perspective on it. To keep this craft fun for me, I have to be able to change my mind at any point in a project. Like, I'm working on a project right now, and, I just got through the yoke of the sweater, and I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna put buttons or no buttons. And, I need to feel very empowered to make those decisions on a dime and, not be stuck following a pattern row by row or not be stuck working on the same project day after day. Like, that's just what keeps it fun for me. But like my best friend though, which is so funny because opposites attract, she is a monogamous knitter. She will pick up a pattern, she'll commit to that, and no matter how long it takes, that is all she is working on. And it's usually because, she's gonna wear it to a concert or she's gonna take it on vacation. So, we're very different in that way, but I totally respect her, but I'm like, "Girl, you've been working on that sweater for 3 months. You don't wanna work on nothing else? You don't wanna give yourself a little bit of a break?" And honestly, switching up projects is kind of how I recharge creatively, I might go work on
Yeah.
something else for a while, but then I'm thinking about getting back to this sweater, and I might have, like, a really great idea of how I wanna change it. So, it's I think everybody's got their different practice, but man, one whip at a time, that is dedication right there.
It really is. I know that there are some people here at the office who actually practice it, and I'm quite jealous of it. And I also know that most of us is just insane. I've tried it once, but I just cannot.
I don't think I
I
can either.
am though. I think that my way of wrapping this up is by reducing a little bit the number of whips I have. So
Mm,
instead of having what I had, which was, I don't know, at some point, I'm sure at some point I had 15 different kinds of projects laying around, if not
yeah,
more.
yeah.
Now I'm reducing it, you know? So I tried actually for every new pattern that I began, I also tried to finish one pattern, that I started. So that it kind of compensates, and now I maybe have 6, 7 whips going on,
Awesome.
which is nice, I feel like it's manageable.
Yeah.
It's
I love
manageable.
I love
All
it.
right. Well, very, very, very interesting little hot takes and little superstitions you have going on.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's get a little serious, Tony, and let's talk about the pulling back the curtain moment of
Mhm.
Tony. Let's talk about the unglamorous parts of running this fiber arts business, the all the annoying and very, very boring, maybe you don't find it boring, I don't know, all the bookkeeping, the contracts, the burnout, the emails that you said that you had to wake up early to answer today, the admin overwhelm and all of that.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about it, because it must have an emotional toll on you. I know it because while I was working at Hobbii, I also had my own company as a wedding photographer. And that took I burned out really easy after 2 years of doing that.
Mhm.
Because it's like when you have your own business, it's not a 9 to 5 job, it's nonstop.
Absolutely. Yes. You never work harder than you do for yourself.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
tell me about it.
definitely. I've been running my business since about 2013, and I quit my day job to go full time in 2017. So since then, my life has been TLYarnCrafts,
Mm.
constantly on the phone, on the computer, cranking out patterns, running crochet alongs and building community. There's so much that I want to accomplish. So there's a lot of hustle going on, and it has been since day one. So a few of the unglamorous parts of things, I could definitely think back to, when I first started, I was like a one-woman show. I was
Mhm.
doing everything. I was writing the blog posts and all the social media, cranking out the patterns. I was organizing the photo shoots. Every single aspect of my business, I was running on my own. And I don't think a lot of people knew that early on because, one of the things that's always been really important to me is I want this to look effortless. For the
Mm.
people interacting with my content, all I want you to see is how I want to help you grow in confidence as a crocheter. I don't want you to see me looking frazzled or harried or like, oh girl, I just got off of this important call, but I'm here, we doing this. Like, no. I always wanted it to be this very calming, soothing, welcoming place for you to come in and do your thing.
Mm.
So what I found is eventually, if I wanted to maintain that persona, I needed to bring on some help. TLYarnCrafts started to grow at this really beautiful exponential rate. And I was like, I can't stay on top of all of the correspondence and I can't post as often as I want to, or I can't create, all the patterns that I want to. So I need to bring on some help. So my first hire was my virtual assistant. Her name is Elizabeth. Hey girl, I'm pretty sure she listens to your podcast. And she was the first person I brought on because I was just getting so overwhelmed by the correspondence that was coming in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so basically you start your business just because you love yarn, and then you end up becoming everything. You end up becoming a project manager and a marketing strategist and an accountant and all of that. So yeah.
All of that, it's like a corporation with all these departments, but there's only one office. It's just me.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
so eventually it got to the point where I needed to, hand out some of that responsibility. And if for the folks who might be running a handmade business on your own and you're feeling a little frustrated, a little frazzled, bringing on one person just for a few hours a week to do the things that you no longer have the bandwidth for, having somebody take that off your plate is the
Mm.
most satisfying feeling because it's like you feel like you've got things a little bit more together because now the things that only you can do, you can focus on those, and the other admin work, the emails and replying to comments, like I was able to hand some of that off, which was amazing. And then I continued to build my team from there. I got a business manager. I started working with a bookkeeper. I've got a tax preparer now. And, it's gotten to the point where I do need to invest in some support for my business if I want to continue to grow.
Yeah, yeah.
And I absolutely do. So I need to bring on the folks that also see the vision, who are competent at what they do. So,
Yeah.
while none of this has to do with the yarn at all, this is what helps me make time for the yarn.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to spend money to make more money and to, grow something. You have to do it. And that's why people need jobs.
Mhm. Yeah, I was running TLYarnCrafts on the side from my day job for years
That's
because it
insane.
wasn't, turning the profit just yet, and I
Yeah.
wasn't able to afford, all of the extra support that I needed. But once
Mm.
once I quit my day job, I was like, "Okay, I've got this little pot of money set aside for whatever the costs are," because there's a lot of expenses running a business. My goodness, I would say probably at least a quarter of the money is gone the moment you make it.
Yeah.
It's right out the door between taxes and bills, and like you're paying to be on these different platforms, you're paying for materials, you're paying for whatever staff that you have. So just assume, if you make $5,000, just assume about 1,200 of it is gone. Just like you never even made it. It's right out the door. But
Yeah.
it's worth it because that's how you continue to grow. That's how you build. It does absolutely take money to make money as a small business owner constantly. Yeah.
So hiring Elizabeth, do you think that is what did you actually get to burn out? Is that why you hired Elizabeth, or did you hire her to not burn out? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, tell me about that a bit.
I did. I felt myself getting to that point. So in 2016, 2017, there was this very like girl boss culture. Just for, people, I think just people my age with my generation, it was like, you can make a living running a business that you love. But there was also this idea of like, you have to do it perfectly and it has to look, like I said, effortless. And you just have to kind of push through. So I felt myself getting to that burnout stage of like, I can't maintain this. And that's when I brought her on. Now, I definitely did experience a burnout in my career. It didn't necessarily have to do with, not having enough people on my team. It was just, I was working so hard that I lost the joy. I lost the enjoyment. I was focused so much on, I now have to do this full time. There was a lot of pressure. It felt because I was doing this full time now. And I was like, if this fails, I don't have a backup plan. And I kind of started to spiral into some of those thoughts of like, oh my gosh, what do I do if this doesn't work out? So I was just cranking out patterns and tutorials and videos and doing all of the in-person everything. I was doing everything.
How do you structure that? I mean, like, I'm just thinking all of those things, like, how do you actually put all of that in a content calendar? Because I feel like that's insane. That is so much. I mean, I know because I have experienced burnout, and it's crazy.
It is definitely a recipe for overwhelm. I didn't realize I was in a hole, and I just kept digging. And on the surface, it was in an effort to spread the joy of crochet, but what it really was being led by fear that this wouldn't work out, and then I would be a failure, and then I had now wasted all this time and energy, and I should have just stayed in my day job. You know? So once I I went to therapy for this, I started going to the doctor, I started exercising, I'm trying to sleep better, and a lot of it was to try to just reframe my mental, because all of this was just thoughts. This was like it was just these thoughts that were kind of attacking me at this point. So eventually I realized I needed to get more organized. That was part of the issue and part of what was sending me down this spiral. Because like you said, I was doing a bit too much and I was not, I didn't feel like I had a handle on everything. So I needed to remove myself from some projects, which took a lot of maturity, a lot of humility to go back to a partner and say like, hey, I know I committed to this, but I overstretched myself.
Yeah.
Can we adjust the timeline, or can we adjust the scope of this project? To be really transparent of, I want to show up for you, but I can't in the way that I promised before. How can you remember this? So that was definitely a trying time for me, but it was a turning point that I'll never forget because it helped to influence the way that I now schedule my time. I put things on calendars. I'm very intentional about the number of projects that I take on, or I will, create a schedule for myself almost a year in advance of like knowing what trips I have to go on or what commitments I'm going to have. So I think a little bit further out to ensure that when I need time for rest, that is baked into my calendar and I'm not overextending myself anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I feel like that's a very, very important thing to tell not only, business owners, like small business owners, but also just to everybody. Like, set boundaries between work and personal life, because it is the only way where you can actually show deep respect towards yourself. I feel.
Yeah, it's really easy to get caught up in, I'm living the dream,
Yeah.
quit my job to crochet pretty much full time. I am living the dream, but it's easy to get caught up in that and forget all the work that it takes to be able to live that dream. You have to find some balance there and make sure that you still enjoy what you do. Because if you don't, anything is going to feel like a job after a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but it was something that I needed. It was something that I needed because I was, kind of going down this unsustainable path. And again, the universe just kind of nudged the ship a little bit, and I had to switch some things up. But now I've gotten to a place where I feel confident running my business, and I also very much love what I do. I've gotten to a place where like the joy and the love for it takes precedence over, success being how hard I work. Success is not how hard I work. Success is, how many lives I touch and how many, people I inspire. And I feel really confident that the way that I work now allows me to maximize my reach.
That's very beautifully said, Toni.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm having a whole lot more fun now, at least.
I feel you a lot on that because, like I said, I've been through that, and it's so weird to have that feeling of like you want to do it all, and you are the only one who does it the best way, and but not because of like being a control freak, more because you really want to make sure that everything that's being delivered is like, delivered the best way possible, because it's your baby and you want to really polish that baby and make that baby shine as it should, right? So I get you there. All right, let's talk a little bit about the future. Or when I say the future, I mean all of this crazy movement that is AI and automation, and what the future means for fiber art. I'm dying to know what you think about it, especially all of the new things, because I use AI for sure. I use it to help me because I'm a plus size girly, and sometimes there are patterns that are not plus size inclusive, but I still. And it's not because the designer is like, oh, I'm not going to make this for plus size. It's more because maybe the designer didn't have the resources to knit that, so they couldn't include it and so forth. So sometimes I have to do a lot of math in my head to adjust it. So I just use AI for that because it actually works very well. It's good at doing math. So what is your take on this? Especially all of the AI generated patterns. And by the way, before you dive into this, I think it was a few months back, we had found, and this is so crazy, one of the Hobbii patterns. We have this beautiful hexie cardigan made with, I think it's honey bunny, if I'm correct. And these beautiful pictures that our colleagues Katrina and Sylvia took in this super beautiful background with cherry trees, and it's like very specific. It's very recognizable. And we actually had found that somebody basically took that pattern, downloaded it because it was a free pattern, put it through a AI system to rewrite it. So basically, they just took the numbers and everything. They just rewrote the whole thing, even auto-generated new images using AI from those images that we had in the pattern, and just uploaded it to Etsy and sold it. No, it's insane.
Yeah, that is the line that I think we're approaching, if we have not already crossed it. That just really, I feel like it gives AI a bad name in the craft space.
Yeah.
I feel like at my core, the first thing I am is an artist, and I am an advocate for artists. So like AI is so troublesome for me in that respect. Now, I'm not going to come on here and bash AI. I feel like it is a tool, and I feel like it has a place. I know, at least for me, one of my favorite ways to use it is I make a lot of content. I make, video content, blog posts, social media. So I use AI a lot to, maybe help flesh out ideas, or like help me build a script, or help me polish, a draft on a blog post. So I definitely there's a place for it. But once we get to the point where we're using AI to generate patterns and then uploading those and trying to sell them, like trying to sell content made from AI, especially if it's goodness, and to steal it first, that is just, it screams of a lack of respect for the hard work that it takes to do the things that we do. Like write pattern and coming up with like how to say this and how to make it make sense to other people, that is a hard job. That is not easy work. So to take the shortcut of saying, not only am I going to take this, you know, this intellectual property that doesn't belong to me, I'm now going to basically put it through a robot that's going to polish it for me, and then I'm going to turn around and sell it to other people. My goodness, that just, it just burns me up. It burns me right up. So
Yeah.
I
feel like it's equally hilarious and super harmful at the same time, because it's first of all, how I was like, how dare you?
Yes,
How
100%.
yeah, and how can you think that just asking a tool to write a pattern for a beanie, how do you think that that's going to turn out fine? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yes.
this is the beginning of, we're talking about the beginning of AI, honey. You know, it's like, don't trust everything AI does.
Oh, and it's hilarious in that, you know, I think it can be kind of a fun, like it's a fun tool. I've definitely seen AI generated images and people are using AI to make like some really fun and interesting content. I saw a creator who like put a bunch of, you know, photos up on a screen, right? Some of them were AI, some of them were like actual crochet, and she was challenging people to see if they could tell the difference. You know, and if we're really honest with each other, you're gonna be stumped, because AI is only getting better.
Yeah.
Only gonna get better at like truly mimicking, you know, what the stitches look like, really starting to replicate what natural shapes you can achieve. And there are folks that are already going on platforms like Etsy and buying patterns that they don't know are AI generated. And there's no incentive for those sellers to be honest about that. So, you know, it starts to be a little less funny when people are actually losing money over this. You know, people who've worked really hard to hone these skills, or people who've used their hard-earned money to buy a pattern and then they print it out and they're like, this actually doesn't work.
Yeah.
And, you know, as somebody, again, who advocates for beginners, that is a really sticky situation to be in, because as a beginner, you might not know if it's the pattern that's the problem or if it's you that's the problem. So I struggle in that, you know, the beginner might find just the wrong pattern early on and be like, you know what, maybe crochet is not for me. And that's where I'm just like, oh, honey, no. Like, I wish I could just like reach through time and space and be like, it's not you, it's AI. Like,
it's not you, it's AI.
It's not you. So
it's like the idea of just the thought, right? You're downloading a pattern written by AI and calling it handmade pattern. You know, it feels like it feels kind of like you're letting your, I don't know, your Roomba try to sew a quilt blanket or something. You know, like.
There are applications for AI that I absolutely respect, you know, and without, you know, digging into some of the environmental impacts, which is also a challenge that I think about. But on the surface, I feel like AI is an incredibly powerful tool that can help a lot of us move forward in our hobbies and our craft, in our jobs.
Not to be dramatic here, but AI actually saved my life after I gave birth to Albert.
Really?
Yes, I'm not even joking. I'm not the only person that I've read stories like that where doctors could not find what was wrong with me, and my heart was giving up.
Yeah.
And it was AI that, you know, after we put in all of my test results, and because you can feed it so much information and feed it the charts and whatever you got, right? After we've sent it in, just a prompt, you know, it gave me the issues that I was having. So the doctors could actually treat me according to what I had, because my heart was giving up and they thought I had heart failure, but it was not that. It was something else. So It's insane that doctors have been trying for 3 straight days to find what was wrong with me, and it took AI 5 minutes to figure out what was wrong with me.
See, and that stories like that really
It's insane.
like AI definitely has a place. Oh my gosh, that gave me chills, girl.
Yeah.
Like that
It's
is
very scary. We were in the hospital and I just given birth to Albert, and 1 day later I started feeling really weird, like
mm,
could not breathe well. I was exhausted. I was, obviously hormones, emotions everywhere, but my feet were so swollen. I could barely walk. I was getting very foggy. It was really bad. Turns out I just had postpartum eclampsia, which
mm,
happen that often, but it's like where you have like high blood pressure, extreme
mm,
high blood pressure after giving birth because of whatever reasons.
mm.
And that usually happens right before you give birth. So it's not,
Oh,
not a lot of people get it after they give birth. So the doctors are not used to treating that. So they looked for everything. They looked for blood clots. They looked for, I've had all tests possible and impossible done. Thankfully, all free because, yeah, it's free here in Denmark. But, you know, it's been 3 full days of me going to different tests and different labs and different, yeah, meeting with different people and a lot of uncertainty and very, very scary. And, having a scary conversation with your partner and your three days old baby
oh my
and
gosh.
thinking, okay, what's going to happen if I actually die? If the doctor
Mm,
don't give me more than a year to live, like what is going to happen with this? It was really, really rough. And then ChatGPT just comes in and is like, nope, this is what you got. This is what you got to do. Take this dog, medication and this and that, and boom, 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 boom. And it was done. And it's so ridiculous. It is such a ridiculous thing to say
yeah.
out loud. And even me just saying this in front of a microphone, it, it's a little crazy. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I get it. It is a very, very powerful tool.
absolutely.
Um,
I think about this transition in technology right now, similar to, like when we first started using the internet or when social
mm,
media first started, a lot of this stuff feels so foreign and almost like a little wrong at first, right?
mm,
When you're
mm,
starting to get used to it. But now we've found the proper applications to use these things. And I think the opportunity is there for AI. Like it feels almost like this shortcut right now of like, ooh, should I really be relying on, this artificial intelligence to tell me about my ailments? But it is a supplement, right?
yeah,
To,
yeah,
the doctors that you see or the places that you go to try to get better. And, we're not necessarily diagnosing ourselves here, but it can give some insights that, just searching on the internet might not help with. And honestly, whatever can get us as far away from like Googling things and going to
yeah,
WebMD and scaring ourselves,
yeah.
I am all for.
Because it's a big difference. Because if you ask Google, like, hey, I have these symptoms. What is it? Google is like, you are going to die.
You're going to die. Like that is the immediate response is something is very wrong and you are going to die. And that is when you are feeling unwell
Yeah,
and that is the first response you get, that is so unsettling
yeah,
and so just
yeah,
really a bad place to start. So I love that you're able to use ChatGPT like in this really high pressure sensitive time to even just get some insight to then take back
yeah,
to your doctor like, hey, have we looked into this?
yeah. And
Yeah, of
and I feel like it is, of course, you have to fact check everything with it.
course. Yeah.
And same goes for patterns. Same goes for crochet patterns and knit patterns that are generated by it. Because like you mentioned it, it's a tool. Yes, if you are a designer
Mhm.
and you want to use it like as a tool
Mm,
to perfect what you have written in your pattern to
yeah.
help you out and describe your pattern that you've written yourself. You know what I mean? To use it as a tool in that regard, then awesome. Then do it. Like, why not? It's incredible. It can explain some things that you might miss explaining, or you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it complements your work.
100%, yeah.
And use it. But you do have to always fact check as well. So
100%,
if
yeah.
you're just like a person out there on Etsy who's like, I don't know, I want to make some money, so I'm just gonna like steal from these sweet
Yeah.
little people who just want to craft, and then auto generate these crazy, unrealistic images.
Mm.
That's just gonna like, it's just unethical.
It is incredibly so, and I think people need to hold ethics to a higher, it needs to have a higher impact on our decision making. Especially as artists, we put our work out there, and I can't chase down every person who uploads my patterns to like a pirating site, and it happens so often. So, there's already those kinds of things to deal with. And now to be concerned that somebody's going to run my pattern through AI, tweak it a little bit, and then, put out this subpar version of what I spent so much time on. Oh, it's heartbreaking, but I think it does encourage us as the folks who are trying to do it right to really put ourselves out there, like really invest in our marketing and make sure people know that this is made by human hands. And there's going to be that essence of the craft that you'll never be able to replace with AI. You'll never be able to replace with technology.
Okay, Toni, let's talk about fiber fashion, and let's talk about trends, and let's talk about forecasts. And what do you think is going to come in 2020, late 2025 or 2026 even? What trends do you foresee in your globe?
One of the things that I really love about right now, especially being a crocheter, because there's always a little bit of a complex, right, that you have as a crocheter in relation to knitting. It's impossible to get rid of. But I love to see that crochet as a trend is starting to continue. And I feel like in a lot of ways, it's starting to cement itself in like the larger fashion industry. Like crochet accents or crochet centered pieces, I think are going to continue to be really big for spring, summer. And I hope they start to transition into fall, winter. I think convincing people to crochet for the colder months is still a little bit of an uphill battle. But like, as long as the weather is still warm, things like, polo shirts, maxi dresses, sun hats, like really cute bags for the beach, all of those with crochet accents, I think will continue to be, something that we see on runways and inside our department stores for a really long time. I hope so, at least.
It's really funny that you said that it's still hard to see crochet in winter months, and that's really funny because I'm one of those people that definitely, unfortunately, have that switcheroo. I completely switched to knitting in colder months and switch back to crochet in warmer months.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from, commercially, crochet is often made to look like very lacy and very, you're using it in these lighter colors for these, very like light and lacy tops and dresses, skirts. So it's hard to flip that switch and be like, how can I make crochet good for winter? But what's so funny is crochet, of course, makes a thicker, heavier fabric.
Yeah.
That can be more conducive to the wintertime.
Exactly. I was going to be like, but actually you're right. It makes a lot of sense because crocheting is maybe even more insulating than knitting, because it makes a thicker fabric.
Absolutely. And but that is a nuance to crochet that if you don't do it already, if you don't understand crochet, you might not be aware of that. So like one of the things that I recently did is I'm exploring more garments in crochet, particularly things like, sweaters and cardigans and tops and things. So, there's different stitches that you'll want to use, or a tighter gauge that you want to use, or different shapes that you want to use for winter pieces versus summer pieces. But, I would love to see crochet get a little bit more shine in the wintertime, but crochet pretty much owns the summer, and I'm cool with that. I'm definitely cool with that.
I think also because of that specific way of creating the fabric, because it is a little bit more thick. That's why it's a little bit harder to create more comfortable using thicker material, like wool, you know what I mean? With this new resurgence of craft in general, of knitting and crocheting, I feel like people are just going to do everything all the time. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
People are going to stop caring what makes sense or doesn't make sense.
which isn't that just a beautiful place to come to for us to not feel like there are so many rules on
Yeah.
when we make certain things or how we make them. It's just, if you've got the whim to do it, just do it. Don't even and I think that's part of my issue is like I have taken the guardrails off completely. When I have an idea, I pull yarn and I'll make the gauge swatch and I'm like, I will figure out when I'm going to work on this, but I at least need to get this out of my head and written down somewhere.
Yeah.
And I love that people are, not following these sets of rules or these misconceptions of like when and how and what. Like crochet
Oh
is.
yeah, that's gone a long time ago, I feel like.
I love it. I love it because then there's no expectations anymore. We can really just focus on the enjoyment and the art of it all, because I feel like at its core, crochet is an art form. It's got this 3D texture to it and this construction to it, and you can literally make anything. So I'm like, whatever you thought you wanted to make that gauzy thing with the fun colors and throw some fairy wings on it, like whatever, wherever the moment takes you, go there. Go all the way there.
It is incredible with crochet what you can do from little dolls and animals and play food to these beautiful lacy bridal shawls. It's like the spectrum of crochet is insane. I really recognize that there's so much you can do actually with crochet, and just keeping it to one single season, it's wrong.
Yes, it does the whole craft a disservice.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to it. And I think about, I go to these fiber festivals in the fall and winter time, and I see all of these really lovely crochet sweaters or cardigans or like these costumes, really. And I'm like, man, if everybody could see this, I think it would really start to raise the appreciation that, folks have for crochet, even if it's not your primary craft. I as a crocheter, I feel like I've always kind of had a chip on my shoulder, and you kind of can't help it because there's always going to be comparison between the crafts.
Oh, yeah.
Crochet is often found to be lacking. But, one, I feel like we shouldn't compare them because they're completely different crafts. They make different fabric. You use it for different things. So how can we compare these? And two, the diversity of projects you can make with crochet is so vast. And, if folks took just a little bit of time just to dig into even the history of crochet, the beautiful like yarn bombing or, 3D crochet, fillet crochet, there's so many techniques and things to dig into that it's like whatever your flavor is, you can find it in crochet. I'm just such an advocate for the craft, and I feel like, especially this younger generation of makers are starting to see the ease of how easy it is to get into crochet and how easy it is to like really just be this super creative person. So I think the tides are changing for sure, and I'm glad to see that it's changing not just for the hobbyists, but also for the broader fashion industry.
So what do you think is going to be super hype in 2026 in terms of, I don't know, a specific thing? Like, do you think it's going to be, because I feel like granny core has been, it came and it went like 3 times in the last few years.
I feel like granny core is the kind of thing where like it has its seasons, but it'll never go away. I think we have all kind of indoctrinated. We've found the clear link between crochet and the granny square, and now you see it everywhere. It's just this very approachable motif. So I don't think granny squares are going to go anywhere. What I would love to see more of in the crochet world is just really embracing color.
Yeah.
Getting a lot more confident in putting colors together and using color to like make a statement in our pieces. Crochet.
That's very tricky though. I mean, not to spoil the fun here, but I feel like that is quite tricky because you can always combine colors, but combining the right colors takes a little bit of an eye for it, or at least a course or two, you know what I mean? Or at least reading about it, educating yourself about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely agree that like crochet is not intuitive for everyone. It's not. And when it comes down to it, understanding color, it's a science, right?
mhm.
There are some rules that make it work.
Yeah.
But just like learning a new technique in crochet, understanding a color wheel or being able to put palettes together is something that you have to practice at. You have to spend some time learning it. You have to invest in the education.
Yeah.
And thankfully, there are a ton of resources out there.
Mhm.
So it's not like the information doesn't exist, but similar to like making a gauge swatch or blocking, it's a step in the process where folks are like, I got enough knowledge to get by without it. And there are going to be folks who, either it comes intuitively to you, you found a color scheme that works for you, and you just kind of stay in that lane. But I would love to see more folks stretching out of their comfort zones there. And I take that from my personal experience. Stretching out of just using pinks and oranges and yellows, trying some greens and blues and purples has really expanded my joy and appreciation for yarn shopping. It's
Mhm.
changed how I build my stash.
Yeah.
It's changed how I build color palettes, because now I'm like, looking at this very warm palette and I'm like, ooh, if I throw a blue in here, it's just going to really take it up to that next level. So, understanding and playing with color really can elevate our projects and help us to look at, that hobby a little bit differently. So I'm really hoping we can all get a little bit more comfortable with color and just really throwing it at our projects, in this way that just elevates them and really takes them to the next level.
It really, really matters when it comes to building your stash, I feel. And also knowing yourself, and knowing, okay, what colors do I usually love to work with?
Hmm.
And what colors work with those colors and so forth, right? So it is a little science that goes behind it. And, it's a lot of, there's a lot of resources, like you said, out there available. So,
Hmm.
and it is just an extra little step. And
Yeah.
for me, that is my favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. There is nothing more thrilling and exciting in the whole process of starting a project than the color combinations.
Yeah.
Girl, I could spend hours just combining colors.
Yes, it is so much fun. I think about like when me and my mom go yarn shopping, or we'll just, drop by the local big box store. And the most fun part is going through and pulling yarns and just building palettes, not
Mm,
trying to create a project for it. And I'm maybe not even going to buy this yarn, but just that inspiration of like, oh, wow, look at this texture next to all these colors. And I could make X, Y, and Z like that. Just it's almost like it's like doing research, right?
yeah,
Of like
yeah.
just seeing what's out there and what can work together. And that then encourages me to come back and look at my own stash of like, okay, how can I recreate that energy with the things that I have already? So, I think crochet in general is going to continue to be a trend,
Mm.
for the hobbyist as well as the fashionista. And I do hope the commercially available crochet gets a little bit better, because let's be honest, a lot of what's being called crochet on the shelf is not actually crochet.
No, no, no.
It's machine knit meant
Yeah,
to look like
to
crochet,
look
which
like crochet. You cannot machine make crochet. You can only machine make knitting. So
yeah.
if something's actually crocheted, it's actually crocheted. It's handmade by somebody. You cannot, So that's why also like a little note, be careful if you're shopping from, a lot of those apps that sell you very, very cheap clothing
Yeah.
that say they're crochet, because they are probably crocheted by somebody who's been paid very, very poorly. So do keep in mind that if you're buying a crochet piece, it's probably quite pricey if it's, done ethically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's the ethics of like incorporating crochet into, the larger fashion world.
Mm.
It's like the impact is massive. So not only are you getting, not only are you having to deal with one, trying to identify if a thing is actually crocheted or not. Cause I mean, I have to zoom in on my phone so much to like look at the actual stitches. But then once you can identify that something is handmade, when I find that it's available at like Target or Walmart or some of the really big stores here, I'm like, oh no. Like now I'm starting to think about how this was produced.
Yeah.
And I think we should never shy away from that uncomfortable reality, because if we're going to continue to maintain crochet and really value it for what it's worth, we need to be able to identify it and know that, you know, your favorite store might not be taking care of their workers if you've got, you know, 100 crochet pieces sitting there in front of you. Like there's no way that that's been made and made in a way that, you know, that feels ethically good for the world.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about all of these. I mean, of course we could talk about these uncomfortable topics, but we're talking about trends now. And actually that is a trend happening, because we do see these big corporation brands that are basically just shoving crochet in people's faces and selling a top for $20.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there is a big question mark there. Where is this being made? And
I think there's just even more incentive for people to, you know, up their skills a bit so they can actually make the things.
And that is something I see. I see a lot of people just rejecting that. You know, it's kind of like the second hippie revolution happening nowadays, where people are just saying, you know what? No, I am going to make my own clothes.
Yes.
Because why not?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we're the folks that end up driving the market, right? Like if the market sees that there is a desire for crochet looking pieces, they're going to continue to make them. But if that desire drops because we're now making our own things or buying from truly handmade businesses, you know, you're not going to continue to see those on the shelves. And I really think we shouldn't. So I love this idea of like, we're rejecting like, hey, I see Target made this cute polo shirt and they're calling it crochet, but I could go home and make that myself and feel really good about wearing it.
Exactly. Exactly. Actually, speaking of just these trends, or maybe not only trends, just is there any projects that you don't show on your Instagram? Maybe you are doing one of those trendy stuff that you're not showing on Instagram. Maybe you are going all granny core, or you have some crochet cowboy hat happening right now. Or I don't know. Something weird, something wonky you're doing that you don't want to share. What is it? What are you hiding?
What am I hiding? My secret whips that I don't share with anyone. I mean, absolutely. I definitely have a few things that I don't share on socials, because that's kind of how I maintain the joy of the hobby for myself. And it's usually not till a project is completely done and I'm like happy with it that I even want to share it at all. Because I know the last thing I want to do is like share a whip and people are like, hey, what happened to X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, oh, I hated it. It's sitting in a corner somewhere. So I would say like a couple projects that I'm currently working on. One, I have fully committed to like the sweater craze, the wearable craze that is going on right now in the crochet world, especially. Like a lot of folks are challenging themselves to make more of their own wearables, and I'm doing the same. So I'm currently making a top for a concert that I'm going to, and I haven't shared it at all on socials. I think I might have put it in my stories once, but that's all we've seen. And part of the reason is because I bought a pattern and I kind of used it as the jumping off point, but I'm barely out of the yoke and I've gone completely off script. Like the stitch counts are off. I'm using a very different yarn and hook size. I've like extended certain parts and shortened other parts, and I'm still working on it. So still trying to see if this is going to turn into what I actually think it is. And since my social media, you know, just because I run it as a business, it is so thought out and it is very much curated. If this shirt doesn't work, I might wear it for the concert and you might never see it again. It's like, I'll be completely honest. I'm gonna make it work for this event because I committed to doing that. But as far as like giving it a permanent place on my social media, probably not. If it doesn't work out. But you know, it's an issue that I often run into because being a person of a certain size, I often find that patterns, though well-intentioned, do not actually reflect how a body grows and changes at large sizes. So
I know.
Like it's a really diplomatic way of saying if you don't know how to grade a pattern, don't put the size in there. Like I love them to death, but I feel like people get kind of pressured by this whole size inclusive movement, which I fully support. I absolutely think we should be, stretching ourselves as pattern designers to be able to make sure our items can fit as many people as possible. But if you don't have the skill to do that properly, I'd rather you just size your patterns up to like a large or an extra large and stop there. Like don't tell me that it can go up to a 2X or a 3X and then I make it and I'm like,
even
why am I wearing a pant? Like what is happening here? So, that's why this top that I'm working on, as somebody of a certain size, I've often had to tweak patterns. And right now I'm in the middle of tweaking this pattern and crossing my fingers that it works out. So I'm not feeling super confident to share that publicly until, I'm sure that it's going to work. That's how I roll.
You know what? Shout out actually right now to every plus size crafter out there.
The struggle is real.
For learning, the dark art of garment shaping, basically.
Yes.
Without help.
Without help, yeah, because there's
having to figure it out alone.
There's not a lot of resources out there, because even myself, like I'm a designer as well, right? And I look at some of my earlier patterns and I did not have the skill to stretch beyond, some of your straight sizes. Because, once bodies start to grow, there's certain parts of you that grow faster than others. So you can't just scale up a pattern to fit different bodies, because my body shape, even though it's larger, is not the same as, somebody who wears a small or a medium. I have wide shoulders. I have a really straight torso, like from my hips all the way up to my underarms. I don't have a lot of waist. So there's different parts of me that I need to accommodate that somebody who wears a small, a medium, a large is just not having to think about.
And that's actually, like you said, not to shame the designers who want to be inclusive. That's a great thing. And I love that they're doing that. And maybe it's also a little bit our responsibility as plus size girlies to remember that if there's no pictures of how this sweater sits, question it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You see it on a beautiful slim girly and it's not going to look the same on you, honey. You have the boobies, you have the little rounded shapes here and there, and it's not going to look the same way. You might have to consider, okay, do I need to do some German shoulders here to make some space for the girlies? Do I have to, there's just some things that you have to keep in mind. And it's at the end of the day, to be completely fair and honest, it's not just the designer's responsibility. It's also yours.
Thank you.
It's your responsibility to know, am I buying this because I know exactly how this is going to turn out, because there's pictures or videos or whatever. Or it's just because it's hype and I want to have it and everybody's doing it and I want to do it too, but then it's going to look like crap on me, like I have a sack. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Go for plus size designers then.
Yes. There are resources out there, and there are the designers who do plus size shaping and plus size patterns really well.
Yeah.
But I love that you said that the responsibility is not just on the designer, it is on the maker as well. Because at the end of the day, you're making something to fit your body and not anybody else's.
Yeah.
So, you can't go blindly into a pattern and then you try the thing on and you're like, something's not working. Once you realize something's not working, you got to switch it up. You gotta do something different. I think about with crochet, do we need to add some pleats? Do we need to throw in some increases here or there? Do we need to, change the way we shape this sleeve? The top that I'm working on right now, just to give an example, there is no shaping in the sleeve until you get down to the cuff. And sure, that works really well for somebody whose arm is the same size from your shoulder all the way to your elbow, but that is not how my body is shaped.
Yeah.
So I need to put some decreases as I round down the side of my shoulder. And I need to, adjust the way that, like how big my sleeve opening is and how I place my decreases as I get down to my elbow. So there are just certain things I have to think of that you don't have to think of. But that is not the designer's responsibility to anticipate every different shape that a body could be. It is impossible. Exactly. So if I'm going to make garments for myself, I do take that responsibility of knowing my personal measurements,
Mm.
how I like my clothes to fit, the fibers
Mm.
that I like to put on my body. Like you have to take some ownership for that. And you
Yeah.
can't turn around and be like, oh, this designer just made a bad pattern.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
No,
they?
no.
You know, it's not all on them. It's not.
Exactly. All right, Tones, let's get into the real talk. Capitalism. Capitalism and creativity, you know? Can we get into pricing? Because I feel like sometimes, you know, you can pay $6 for a pattern, right? And then you don't really realize as a crafter or as a maker how much work it goes in those $6. Sometimes you can pay $10 for a pattern, and then it's a crappy pattern.
Yeah.
So what is fair here? You know, break it down for us. Tell us how much time it takes to design, what materials, how much you spend on materials and the tools, you know, and all the writing the patterns and the tools you use for writing, because maybe you pay for those. Especially if you're maybe using AI for some parts, you know, maybe also photography, you know, you have to pay for a photographer if you don't take the pictures yourself. And the testing, what goes into testing? Do you send the yarn to the people? Do people buy the yarn? They're like, how does it go? You know, marketing, administration, bookkeeping, all of that.
Yes.
What is the pricing of a $6 pattern or a $5 or a $10 pattern here?
I love so much that you're breaking down all these aspects, because I think a lot of people don't realize what all goes into like well-executed pattern. You know, if you're a pattern designer who's holding yourself to a certain standard, there's going to be a lot of time and expenses involved in every single design that you put out. So I'm happy to break a few things down, and every designer's process is a little bit different. There's different, you know, expenses that you allot for, but here's kind of how a pattern for me breaks down. Okay. So let's start off with like your materials and tools. So materials, particularly yarn. Let's say I'm making a sweater and I'm using the bougie yarn, because I feel like that's becoming a really a great trend within the maker community of like buying the bougie yarn to crochet yourself something really special. So, you know, depending on your size, you're running somewhere between $150, maybe $300 for the yarn. So like some nice yarn for your sweater.
And this is just because obviously when you're writing a pattern, then you have to like kind of test things out and unravel and
oh my gosh, yes.
crochet some more and unravel and crochet some more and unravel, right? So
so it is my practice that when I buy yarn for a pattern, I buy one additional skein for swatching and for practice and just kind of like playing around with the yarn, because you do have to have like a little bit of yarn that doesn't actually go into the project just to make sure the concept works. So you're spending a few $100s on the yarn, and then, you know, you write the pattern, you get it out there, and now it needs to go to a tech editor. So a tech editor is the person who analyzes, is your pattern technically sound? Does it make sense? Is what you wrote actually going to make the thing? So my tech editor charges me $25 an hour. On average, a pattern is going to take anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to tech edit, because they're analyzing the math and like all the writing. So it's a big job. So we're talking about anywhere from $75, $100, $125 just to make sure your pattern actually makes sense, you know, which is a step that I don't think any designer should skip. It's worth investing in.
Yeah.
Then let's talk about photography. So I am somebody who's always been really dedicated to the visuals within my brand, and to get what I want, I've always hired a photographer. So, you know, depending on who you work with, now I have a really high standard for my visuals. So I pay my photographer about $300 an hour. And that involves, you know, coming to location. I'm going to feed her. We're going to work for, you know, 8 hours or so. And then she has to go home and edit all of those photos. So $300 an hour it's pretty standard for the kind of photographers that I like to work with. And then outside of that, there's a lot of, you know, just time and manpower that goes into testing your patterns, marketing your patterns, all the customer service, the admin, like that. If I average it out to about $50 an hour for 10 hours of work for one pattern, because like the marketing, especially making your TikToks and, maybe you make a YouTube video, maybe you write a blog post and, all of those things really start to add up. So at the end of the day, you're at about $1,200 for a sweater, for one sweater, and on average, a designer is going to put out anywhere from like 3 to maybe even 15 or 20 patterns a year. That is such a massive investment. So when you look at the price of patterns, I definitely equate the price of the pattern with the quality to a degree, right? Like once your pattern starts to get $8, $10, $12, $15, that thing better be perfect. Like it better be, it should have lots of options and really great notes, and it should have beautiful photos. So like once you start to raise that price, the value of what you're getting has to meet that price. Yeah. And so that's part of the reason why I haven't changed my prices in years. I feel like the price that I set them at matches the value of what you're receiving. And I have 2 price points. I have a $5 pattern and I have a $7.50 pattern. Your $5 patterns are usually a lot easier. Maybe they're 1-page printables. It's for like a smaller, quicker project.
Yeah.
$7.50 is for the stuff that took me a little bit longer and cost me a little bit more. So as a designer, I think we have to assume going into it that we're not necessarily going to make the true value of everything that went into what we're trying to produce, right? Like it's within the fiber arts, it's really hard to put a number on how much something is worth anyway. So when I release a pattern, I have a goal of how many I would like to sell to at least break even from all these materials and getting and testing and all of that. But when it comes down to it, as long as I can keep the lights on, as long as that's really all I'm going for. So there are a lot of expenses that go into being a designer. I think people underestimate that. But what I can appreciate is we're starting to get a lot of resources that kind of lower that barrier to entry.
Yeah. For sure.
You can post your patterns for free. There are tech editors that work for a really reasonable rate. Working with testers, while it is an investment in your time, there's usually not a huge monetary investment in something like that. So you can save some money in some places, but considering what standard I hold TLYarnCrafts to, it adds up real quick.
Yeah. How do you even balance, the joy of making with, I feel, the pressure to monetize? Because like you said, well, at least as I keep the lights on, in the end, I feel like you also have to probably think about, okay, what is my goal here? Do I want to get filthy rich and just life like that? Or do I just want to make ends meet and live comfortably, Has capitalism ever made, crafting less fun for you?
I think there is a question that every business owner in this space has to ask themselves. Like eventually, like I was talking about earlier, anything can turn into a job. If the focus is just making money and getting things as big as possible, I mean, you can do that in any industry. You don't have to be a crocheter to do that. And if we're being honest, if you're trying to make your millions, it's not going to be in this industry. It's not like it does not reward people in that way.
Yeah.
I think what you will be rich from is the fulfillment that you brought so much joy to people's lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not all rolling in it over here. But I will say what's kept this hobby enjoyable for me is having kind of a private maker life in addition to the public maker life that I share. So, going to knit night and not putting that in my stories, or going to the yarn store, going to a new yarn store with my mom and just experiencing that, being in the moment for that and not worrying about how can I monetize this, how can I share this with my audience and generate some buzz. You have to have those moments where you disconnect a little bit from the business side of things and really just enjoy things for the sake of being a maker. So like I think about a lot of meetups that I like to go to. So I meet up with, friends that I've been going to Rhinebeck with for years, or, I'll go out into my city for Knit in Public Day and kind of see what different makers are doing. And that's how I meet new people. That's how I find new spaces of people doing really creative and interesting things. So I do have this private side of my crochet life, my yarn life, that I don't share. And that is how I keep kind of the capitalism side, the business side from, sucking the life out of what really started off as a hobby for me. This was something that I did for enjoyment that turned into a job, but there have to be little private parts of it that keep all of it from being just the job.
Yeah, that is definitely so important. Keeping on enjoying it without having to think all the time, oh, I have to make money out of this. Of course, everybody knows this. And we've been talking about this for years now, that we're consumed by social media and by showing everybody, look how good I'm doing and capture this moment, because then some opportunity might come up or whatever, right? Maybe it's also because I had Albert, and I feel like my life slowed down a lot. He's really been teaching me to live a more raw, authentic life, if you want to call it like that. But the funny part is that I don't necessarily feel inclined like I used to. 2 years ago of, oh my God, take a picture of me while I'm enjoying this, or oh my God, I'm out with my besties, we're doing a crochet, this is a perfect opportunity for us to take a picture of our whips, and so that we have content. But now I feel like I'm not doing it anymore as I used to. And I also just I keep reminding everybody around me, just live in the moment.
Absolutely.
You don't need to share it on social media, and live in the moment.
Certainly. And I think that, there is space for both, right? Like as somebody who exists online, who has a business that is run completely virtually, I can definitely appreciate that, people like to see me indulging in my hobbies regularly. So, if I'm going to go to an event like Knit in Public Day, I might, rope my mom and maybe a couple friends in for taking like 1 or 2 pictures. And then after that, I'm putting my phone away and I'll post that photo once I get back home. But like being really intentional about making the time to be present and to just really experience, make those memories and just enjoy it. It's just so important.
Yeah, that's important for the long game, So, Toni, let's talk a little bit about the long game. Longevity, virality, everything that goes, from being a successful little business owner and keeping on being a successful business owner for the future as well. So also some advice for the future fiber bosses out there. You've been doing it for so many years, and you definitely have this beautiful energy about you that is awesome. It's inspiring. It's beautiful. So tell us a little bit, how do you think about creativity in the long run, or like how do you create this longevity in your business?
Yeah, I live by a quote that Maya Angelou said, one of my favorite poets, and she said, "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." And when I first heard that quote, it just like stirred something in my spirit, this reminder of creativity as this renewable resource. It is something we will never, ever, ever run out of, especially as we continue to expose ourselves to all the amazing things and the beautiful people that exist in these industries, in these spaces. There's always
using your bingo whip.
Yes.
A card, with the challenges.
Yes, there are so many ways that we can encourage ourselves to be more creative and to, really stretch outside of our comfort zones. Like, I think about the fact that I was one of those people who was terribly nervous to make myself a sweater a few years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way. Because similar to what we were talking about earlier, I really compared myself to the other people who were doing an amazing job at it. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I just cannot make anything that stellar. And I had to reframe that to say, I do not have to make something to then compare it to somebody else's. I'm the only one who has to like this.
Yeah.
So I am going to make something that I like, that fits me well, that makes me feel confident. And I'll be honest, my first sweater was terrible. It was like one of the sleeves was longer than the other one. I went to go block it and the colors bled. Like it was a fail from start to finish. But it took me kind of like ripping off that Band-Aid to be like, okay, that didn't go well for reason 1, 2, and 3. So let me not do that again. But I'm not going to be scared to make another sweater. I'm just going to improve on it for next time. So, it took stretching out of that comfort zone, doing something that made me a little nervous to be like, yes, now my inspiration, my creativity is stirred up again. And kind of similarly, I'm taking kind of a challenge on for myself to make amigurumi for each of my nieces and nephews for Christmas this year. And this is a big deal for me because I used to try amigurumi and I look at some of the old photos and I'm like, oh girl, that was not it. Like that, this is not my best skill.
I would love to see that. That would be so much fun.
I will send you some photos. I made like a panda and a giraffe and they were fine. I've seen worse, but it wasn't something that I was super proud of. But that was years and years ago. I was way earlier in my crochet practice. There's a lot of things that I didn't know. So now with the benefit of hindsight, I'm able to go into a pattern feeling a whole lot more confident. And now having the goal of making these items that my nieces and nephews can treasure for the rest of their lives. Like I feel so empowered and encouraged to do this and do it well. So, my creativity is constantly being challenged. And I do that intentionally to make sure I'm always growing and enjoying what I do. So, I don't have any issue staying inspired. It's really just the act of making something with my hands always inspires me for that next project or that next idea.
And do you think is it because of this growing experience that you have that some of your patterns go viral? Actually, tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about why patterns, or some of them, go viral and maybe some of them don't. And do you usually plan for it? Because you're like, okay, like, crafting season is coming, so gotta make something viral, or is it just all over the place?
I really wish there was like a formula that we could follow to
everybody would
something goes viral, because honestly, if somebody knows, please share your secrets. I will pay so much money to know what would work and what doesn't, because like as a designer, you never really know. Like I think of some of my fan favorite patterns, right? My Loveland shawl, Daphne Afghan, my Juniper cowl especially. That one just took off. And I think about when I was designing these pieces, and I did not feel any different than I did designing anything else. Like I have a library of over 200 patterns. And every time I go into a pattern, I'm like, oh, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one. This is going to be that. This is going to give me that trip to Hawaii. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. I don't like So I go in with all this confidence, but it really is, the wider maker community that's going to let you know what hits and what doesn't. So all I can really focus on is having, a simple but interesting construction, some really soothing stitches, playing around with color. Those are really the cornerstones of like what makes a TLYarnCrafts design, and kind of staying in that lane and knowing myself and what my audience expects from me. Every now and then we're going to get that pattern that just like catapults itself, that everybody can see themselves making. But on the whole, oh, honey, I have zero idea of what makes a pattern go viral. There's really no way to know until it's out there.
But that's actually a little bit reassuring, because I feel like everybody's just really trying their best.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you can do. And I guess if I had to give one piece of advice of like how to give yourself a better chance of something going viral, it's really just the consistency. Having some kind of schedule of when you put patterns out, being really intentional about your marketing, partnering with different yarn companies or different influencers or different makers to like help get the word out. So you can put as much manpower as possible behind it. But at the end of the day, the market is going to speak for, what they really want. But it does take putting yourself out there on a pretty consistent basis to have a better chance of something like really, catching fire like that.
But actually, that is the best advice for everything: consistency. Like it applies in every single corner of people's lives. Consistency is the key. It's the key to, I don't know, sticking to a diet, losing weight. It's the finishing up a whip, everything, finishing up a book. It's all about consistency. That is what helps you succeed, basically.
Really, anything you want to get better at, you just have to keep showing up, and the progress will come. The progress will come as you continue to show up and do that authentically and intentionally.
All right, let's wrap up this super fun interview. I absolutely loved chatting with you so far, Toni, but I have one more question to ask you.
Yeah.
If you were starting TLYarnCrafts in 2025, what would you do differently? What would you skip, or what advice would you give to the new designers out there that are starting off or that are thinking about starting off today?
Oh, wow. That is a tough question, because I started so long ago, and the landscape of running a handmade business was very different. I think at its core, TLYarnCrafts would always be, this combination of like heart and style and, really community focus, building confidence. I feel like that kind of stuff would not change. But I think the strategy would change, though. Like some things have to be a little bit different. So I would want to focus a little bit more on making memorable content, as opposed to, earlier in my career where I was just really cranking the content out. It was just about showing up. Whereas now in 2025, I feel like people are looking for content they can connect with. For not only the consistency, but also the personality. They want to follow a story. And I feel like if I started TLYarnCrafts in 2025, it would be almost like an avatar, right? Like of this person that you can follow their journey and their adventures and, really connect. I think the other thing that I would focus a lot on right now is really just like niching down, at least in the very beginning. People really look for patterns. They look for consistency. So I'd want to find maybe like a technique or a type of project to really become kind of the authority, or like that person people look for. So when I first started, not when I first started, but like when I got really serious about TLYarnCrafts, that was right around when I learned Tunisian crochet. And that is pretty much the only topic I spoke on for an entire year. And I think it allowed people to connect with me, to decide like, oh, I'm really interested in this topic, and Toni can be the person to get me there. And I feel like I'd do something similar in 2025. I'd find like what's going to be my thing, at least for a while, and like drill down into that. And I think lastly, in 2025, I feel like you can't build a business without really focusing on that short form content. So like your TikToks, Reels, your shorts. My challenge with that, in all honesty, is like I am not camera ready most days. I spend a lot of my work time at the computer, or like actually stitching, and a nice pair of leggings and a cardigan will get me through for those days. But if I'm going to put a camera in my face, it takes a little bit more effort. So if I was starting my business in 2025, I would just put myself in that mindset of like most days I need to be good, turning that camera on myself just to be ready to capture that content. So I think those are kind of the main things I would change. But at its core, TLYarnCrafts would always have kind of that same essence. Just the strategy would change.
All right. That's actually a really good answer. And you're right about the whole thing of having to be ready all time.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much pressure for just looking, look your bestest. But sometimes you have to also remember that it's okay if you're not looking your bestest.
Exactly.
You are such an authentic person that I feel like it's okay for people to see the real Toni, and they already see the real Toni. So I think they don't care if the real Toni has mascara on or doesn't,
I do like a little mascara moment. I'm not gonna lie. I like to get zhuzhed up. Some days you have the energy, some days you don't,
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. All right, Toni, thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go, girl, because I've kept you longer than we initially agreed on. So I'm gonna let you go, but please tell us, where can folk find you? I'm gonna make sure to add all of your info in the description of this little podcast episode. But tell us, where can people find you? Where can people support your work? Where can people be part of what you're creating?
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, TLYarnCrafts exists everywhere. You can find me at TLYarnCrafts on all the platforms, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And I also want to encourage folks, for people who are as fanatical about crochet as I am, I started the Yarn Hive community a little over a year ago. And it's just a chance for us to all nerd out on knitting and crochet the way that we do with our closest friends. You know, there's a little over 1,000 of us in there, and we really love supporting and encouraging each other, finding deals and going to fun places. So if you're looking for a community of people who are as obsessed with crochet as you are, I invite you to come check us out over in the Yarn Hive community.
All right, well, that was it for this episode, this long episode of Skein and Tell. Huge thank you to beautiful and incredible Toni for sharing her truth, her humor, and her behind-the-scenes magic with us today. I think that if you love this episode, please share it with your yarn besties. Check out everything out there, TLYarnCrafts. Check out Toni's Instagram. Check out her website. Check out the Yarn Hive membership. And if you have your own crochet conspiracy theories or secret whips that no one's allowed to see, slide them into my inbox. I want to hear all about it. All right, until next time, stay creative, stay weird, and keep stitching your story. Okay, love you, bestie. Bye.